My name is RJ. I'm one of the co-founders for the Actuator project. We've been active in the past week here in the Forge Telegram. And my co-founder, he should enter the chat here in a minute. But me and my co-founder, we have a bit of a long history in TradFi. I personally came from the ETF industry, building enterprise software for clients, primarily for research analytics purposes. And then, I got introduced to a few crypto projects on the side, and then just, it became abundantly clear from multiple angles, from the finance perspective and software, that there's a much better implementation of finance and it can be done on chain. So I left the traditional finance world, went full time into crypto, and I partnered up. My co-founder, before we even started on Actuator, we've been working together for a few years now, building personal tools in the pulse chain industry. Before Actuator, we've been building personal tools for just our personal pulse and hex-based positions. And as time went on, it became clear that we have all these hex stakes, but we don't have a mechanism for liquidity. So that's kind of what led up to the moment before Actuator was kind of conceived. But that's a little bit about my background.
Right, nice. We have Max from Pulse Ray Vision in here as well now. That's amazing. We're still waiting for Bill. Is your co-founder is here, huh?
Yeah, he should be joining here.
I think that's him, Bill L, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, Bill L. So
can you please say hi, Bill? Can you turn on your mic and your video?
If not, we can keep introing the project until he jumps in here.
All right. Well, maybe just 1 sec before that, just a quick introduction and giving people a little bit idea of what's going on. Hey, Bill, great to see you. You're still on mute, but you can turn on your mic and then we're good.
How about now?
There we go.
Perfect.
I'm making progress.
So great to have you. Let me just give a quick 2-minute introduction about what's going on, and then it would be great to have an introduction of Bill as well, and then go into the project. And then we have a lot of smart people here in the room, and let them all ask their questions. So very quick. This is the first Forge AMA. So we try to make this as in-depth and high quality as possible, right? Other AMAs are often quite superficial, but people have already been asking a lot of things in the comments. So that's a big thing. I'm very happy that a lot of people showed up, and let's hopefully make this a big success. So thanks everyone for showing up. Now, so a very big news is that you guys are contributing 1% of your token supply to the Forge community, which will be distributed between the NFT holders, but also the people leaving reviews and suggestions on the Actuator page on the Forge. We'll share a screen a little bit later how to do. Maybe I'll just quickly show this right now so people know. All right, actually, I think I can't. Let me look at this later. I need to enable the video recording, but we'll show a video how people can go to the Forge. There's already several reviews and suggestions on there for Actuator, but 30% of all the tokens contributed will be shared over the most upvoted reviews and suggestions on the Forge. So that will be very substantial. So hopefully a lot of you guys come in and give great suggestions. And it's also a great way, if you're looking for people who to partner up, or influencers or marketers or whatever you need, that's a really great place to meet people. So there will be this review contest where people can get their share of the tokens. That's why we're having this AMA now, so that people can watch this first, get a really in-depth understanding of the project. So these reviews and suggestions can be more high quality. We've seen many times in the past, websites are very difficult. There's thousands and thousands of projects out there, and it's very hard to get exactly the right information on there. So having AMAs and having reviews where people tell their personal opinion is very powerful. So that's what this is all about. At the very end, so Ilya is also here, who is developing the shit. And this is the Telegram app we're developing together with the Forge as well. And that will help to generate a lot of engagement. It helps people to easily follow tasks, to share, post, follow projects, which is very, very difficult for projects to do. So at the end of the show here, he will quickly show you guys how you can log into the app, go to the Actuator profile and start completing the first tasks there. Over the coming days and weeks, there will be many more tasks in there where people can share posts and help the project grow. So that's really it. Now let's get into it. RJ has already introduced himself with very interesting backstory. So Bill, if you can also introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll move on to do a very short elevator pitch of what the Actuator is.
That's great. Thanks. Appreciate being here. And my name is Actuator Bill. I go by B3 Works. You'll see me out there in different places. By way of background, I spent the first half of my long career in engineering and nuclear submarining, the second half on Wall Street in institutional fixed income, seeing how the sausage is made and not liking it too much, actually. So by 2017, I had already been deeply involved in crypto, which started in around 2013 for me, and had worked into full-time work with that by 17, retired out of the U.S. securities industry and left Wall Street and went full-time down the crypto path. Have been there ever since in a variety of different ways. Full-time day one hexagon, involved in both the PulseX and the PulseSac, everything coming out of RH. I've been neck deep in since it started. Love it. Think it's great stuff. Love what's happening and where it's headed. And that did all lead to some of the ideas that we bring forward today. So I'm sure we'll get into those, and I'll hand it back to you, Mark, and see where you want to go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, let's just do a very short elevator pitch for what Actuator is. And I would like to try to really, let's not get into technical details too much, because that's a very difficult problem that projects usually have. They like to get into those weeds, but it's just too hard for people to get. So we need a very quick 1, 2, 3 punch of what can people get out of this, right? That's the most important thing. So either of you, or we can do one after the other.
And Dave, you take it off and I can add something.
Mark, do you mind if I share my screen? Am I able to do that? I was going to show a quick slideshow.
Yes, you should be, but you might have to enable it. That's the issue that I just, there we go. Perfect. We can see it.
Okay. So what is Actuator? Actuator is a protocol that's built on Pulse Chain. It's currently on testnet, will be on mainnet in the next month. It's decentralized, immutable, has no add keys, and its purpose is to wrap hex stakes with new functionality. So what is that functionality that Actuator provides? So what Actuator does is it actually unlocks efficient and reliable liquidity for your hex stakes. There's been efforts in the past to accomplish this goal. None have really been sufficient or reliable. Actuator seeks to solve this problem. So this is done through the minting of liquid fungible tokens against your hex stakes value, and this enables you to monetize your new or existing hex stakes, and it gives you total flexibility in doing this. So you could do it, at the start of your stake, mid stake, or any time in between. In addition to that, Actuator enables users to purchase discounted hex, and this is done through what we're calling the hex time token, which is a special type of ERC20 token or fungible token. And what's special about this token is that it actually trades at a discount to hex, yet it's backed 1-to-1 by hex, and it can be exchanged 1-to-1 for hex at redemption day. And so what this means is that through these hex time tokens, you can actually achieve a fixed rate of return on your hex with no counterparty or credit risk, because it's fully backed by hex stakes. And you can choose your time horizon when purchasing these hex time tokens. So in other words, by choosing longer time horizons, you'll likely achieve higher fixed returns in hex, and shorter time horizons will yield smaller returns. So that's the rough overview of what the protocol unlocks. Maybe I'll pause there before I get, Mark, as you said, I don't want to jump into technicals too fast. Bill, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that does a good job. At the core of it, as a HSI and stakeholder all throughout the different periods, we love the idea that X locks up value out into the future. That's a feature, not a bug. But at the same time, there are times, and we've seen some even recent examples in people's lives that we know about out there in the community. Sometimes you've got to get access. And if you have to emergency on stake, that can be disastrous. And it'd be nice to have something that's just a little bit more elegant for those types of circumstances. And yet with a market on both sides of this so that the community can benefit from the liquidity that's needed. And that's what it does.
Yeah, I love it. I think very great, short to the point introduction. I cannot see who doesn't want this. So that's why I personally just was super excited as soon as, I heard it from you guys and speaking to you guys. So maybe then let's see who here in the community, has any questions based on.
Does it have to be an existing stake? Does it have to be an HSI, or could it be a traditional stake through the protocol?
Hi,
it has to be.
Question?
To answer that first question, I'm not sure who asked it, but if it's going to be an existing stake, it has to be an HSI. It can't be a native stake because native stakes just don't allow you the flexibility to do this kind of thing. Somebody else had a question?
Yes, please. Nero, shoot.
Okay. So my question is, how does Actuator engage with external stakeholders, regulators, and industry partners to ensure compliance, credibility, and positive relationship within the broader cryptocurrency ecosystem? That's my question. That's the first question.
I didn't fully catch your question. I heard something about partnerships with other companies.
Wait. I said, how does Actuator engage with external stakeholders, regulators, and industry partners to ensure compliance, credibility, and positive relationship within the broader cryptocurrency ecosystem?
I'll answer that best I can. So we're Actuator Finance LLC, and we're domiciled in the U.S. We're communicating with attorneys on making sure we're following all local laws and regulations. I don't know if that answers your question. I heard regulatory outreach and stuff. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. Can I ask my other question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm asking that what is the special reason why the X tokens are employed for delegation, minting, and redemption on Actuator Finance? Are there any other ERC20 tokens that can be employed instead?
Is your question, are there ERC20 tokens that are similar to the Hex Time token?
I'm asking why you are using the X tokens specifically. Are there other types?
The Hex token. I see. So Hex is a unique and special protocol in that the Hex stakes give you certainty about how much Hex you'll receive based on your accrued rewards. So we're riding on top of the Hex protocol because Hex has this natural and predictable staking mechanism where you could see growth in your stake, and we're building on top of the Hex protocol, and it's really only the Hex protocol as far as we can see at the moment is a viable option to create this Hex Time tokens because of the staking mechanism.
So thanks for those questions. I think I have a big question, and I've talked about this a little bit internally, is what do you need to really make this success? Because you are quite special that you're not fundraising. You've built the entire thing. It's something that is really needed in the community. And now the purpose of what we're doing together is to address all kinds of questions, hopefully over the coming weeks. So then when we launch, people know exactly what it's about, exactly know what's needed, and can make this a huge success, right? So when you guys launch, what do you need to make the token a success?
Yeah, I think
just to clarify a little bit more, can it be, in my mind, I don't really understand it. Can it be sometimes they call it a stealth launch. Could it work as a stealth launch where you just open it and slowly people gain adoption, or do we need a big bang in the beginning where the entire community comes together? That would be good for me to understand.
Could I say something, Mark, before you answer that question, guys?
Yes.
I think maybe you could explain to everybody kind of what an HSI is and how everything's involved with this, because hex is a little complex and some people might not be familiar with it. So could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I could take that one. You guys can still see my screen, right? So so what we're looking at here, this is a visual of what's going on with hex stakes. So when you create a hex stake, you establish a start day and end day, and each day during the life of your stake, you accrue rewards in hex. So that can be seen in green, and then the blue below will be your principal. And so this amount is knowable, and like I said, it increases during the life of your stake. And so what Actuator does is it calls the hex protocol. It asks the hex protocol, hey, what's the value of this stake? What was the principal, and what are the rewards accrued to date? And once the hex protocol tells us what that is, from there we can then mint tokens representing ownership in that hex within the stake. And as the hex stake accrues in value, we can mint additional hex time tokens that again are backed 1-to-1 by that newly accrued hex. And then finally on end day, when your stake ends on end day, you get access to all that hex. However, if you've minted hex time tokens against that hex, the hex time token holders have the right to the hex instead of the staker. So, and then as far as HSIs, really the only important aspect of HSIs you need to know about is that they're transferable like an NFT, whereas native hex stakes can't be transferred like an NFT, and therefore they more static. It's harder to wrap tools like this around a native hex stake. In fact, it's not really possible. But with the Hedron project, the Hedron takes hex stakes and makes them transferable and makes them into NFTs. And it's a kind of just something that is like a core primitive that helps us build additional tools on top of it to do stuff like minting tokens against the HSI. Hopefully that helps give some background. I don't know, Bill, if you had anything to add there.
Yeah, I think something to add while we're talking about hex and HSIs would be this. If you're new to hex and you're learning what the value proposition is, we've got some information on our site that connects you to that and helps you see it. But it's a way of staking and earning in a trustless way without ever giving your keys away. It's really a really important concept, and we want to build everything on that. But it's worth knowing that you don't have to bring HSIs to this. If all you bring is your hex, you can use hex through the protocol to create the wrapped stakes and do everything you need to here in Actuator. So it's not as though it's only for people with HSIs. It's not. Anybody with hex can just come in here and create the wrapped stakes right here, which will be very similar to the HSIs. They will be the same for functionality purposes. But if you don't even know that, you don't have to worry about that, because you can create it right here and then carry out the minting the same way.
Great explanation, guys.
All right. So that does not work for existing hex stakes, right? Just to clarify that again.
Existing native hex stakes, it doesn't work, right?
Existing native, yes. It's really for people who want to start one now. And then, so how does the process actually exactly work? So can you run us through that? If someone comes now and wants to get that done.
Yeah, so if you would, so let me actually, I could demonstrate this in our app here. So this is our web app, and this is where you would interact with the Actuator contract. And in this first table here, you could see I have all these stakes. However, they're special stakes in that they're Actuator delegated, which means they're Actuator stakes under the hood, but they've been delegated over to Actuator to give us this new functionality that we've been talking about. And so I have 4 of those. And so what users can do is they can, go into this table and they can create a new hex stake. They can input their amount of hex they want to stake like they would with any other stake. And then they could select their hex end day like they would with other end days. or like they will with any other hex stake. And then they could submit that, and that, again, under the hood, that creates a new stake. And what's special about this stake is that you can now mint these hex time tokens against the value of the stake. So notice a new row just showed up at the bottom here. This is my new stake. And I have my principal of 1,000 hex that I gave it. I have 0 accrued rewards because the stake was just created, and I haven't, there's no rewards yet since it just started. However, I have this column called available to extract, and I'm eligible to extract 1,000 HTT 7,000. 1,000 because that's the value of my stake in hex terms at the moment, because I deposited 1,000 hex. And then and the token is HTT 7,000, which is hex time token, which is redeemable on day 7,000. And that's because my stake ends on day 7,000. So from there, I can extract those hex time tokens, and I'll do the max amount. I could submit that. So now behind the scenes, this is interacting with the Actuator contract, and the Actuator contract is going to mint new tokens representing ownership over this hex principal. And I have this tokens page here, and you can see my HTT 7,000 balance is now 1,000. And at this point, I could use those tokens like I do with any other fungible ERC20 token. I naturally would probably sell them, and then I could sell them for hex, and I can create new stakes, or I could use them for other purposes throughout DeFi. And so that's concretely what you do to to make the stake, and then to extract the hex time tokens from the stake.
Okay. Is there any reason if someone would start a new stake to not use Actuator and just do it the traditional way?
So, I mean, from our perspective, there's not a good reason, in that you don't lose any features. You're gaining, you're strictly, like, you could make it through Actuator, but you don't ever have to use the Actuator minting function. You could just treat it like any other hex stake. But what's great is that if you create it through Actuator, you give yourself future optionality to potentially mint the time tokens against your stake if you find yourself in that situation. You could create your stake through Actuator, treat it like any other stake until you need to use the Actuator features. I mean, of course, everybody's going to have their own, reasons. If you need time to get comfortable with the system, maybe you don't go through Actuator yet. I get that. But as far as just speaking on like features provided to you, the system strictly gives you, new tools and features. In addition to that, you could still actually mint your hedron with the underlying stake, and so you'll retain full functionality.
So one point that may ask the question is there any reason not to use this? Technically, the fullest answer is if you're concerned about contract risk, which is always an issue anywhere, then the purest way to have a hex stake is to reduce your exposure to only the hex contract. And then you eliminate the hedron contract HSI risk, which this is an extension of. So our response is that seems to be quite a proven contract at this point. There's been an awful lot of community use, testing, and shaking of that HSI contract, which we just extended. We didn't have to rewrite all that from scratch. So we're using proven code. So if you're comfortable accepting the contract risk associated with that, then in theory, this is the way to do it, because the extra functionality is there and you can use it or not use it as you need to along the way, and transfer and all those nice features. But it is mindful for those that might be new that you have to understand what contract risk means if you're not familiar with that. All code has risk, and the more of it, the more there's some element of risk, though the more it's proven, the more comfortable you can become with that.
Yeah, and related to that, you could track the progress of our audits, which you could view find in our docs. We have a summary of the audits completed. So we have one security audit has been completed already, and we're in progress on really 2 others. So we have an additional security audit performed by DDOB, they're in the middle of that. And then DDoB is also performing a specific financial audit that seeks to just verify the system is working as intended from a financial perspective. So yeah, we're a big believer in audited code. And Hex, the holy grail of audited code, we want to follow kind of a similar trajectory. So
very nice. I think back to the question I asked before, and a little bit to give people a feeling of how big this is going to get, right? It would be good to know actually how many hex stakes are currently being generated kind of on a daily basis. What do you think that means for the actuator? Also, you can give maybe a little bit your take on how this is all going to grow, once the market really picks up and your place in that. And you can answer this, you can kind of pick from all the questions I asked here. But finally, how, just how big you think that this is all going to get in your eyes?
Let me start with that one. I'll start at a high level, and then, RJ can pick up on some of the mechanical details. As I look at this, but again, I come out of the TradFi, traditional finance, security world of seeing what produces the kinds of services that the world's financial services run on. And the concept of yield curve is super important. I'm going to make that connection here for you in a minute. But if you think about the US Treasury market, for example, or anybody's Treasury market, the fact that you have a rigorous market-based time value of money that tells you what is a borrowing rate in treasuries for the 90-day part of the curve, a 6-month, a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, and all the off the runs in between. You have a yield curve that tells you the time value of money. And many other services ride on that, because that's a reliable backbone of a financial system, is the measurement of the time value of the native token, dollars in that case. What we see this developing into is the equivalent in Hex, with Hex as the reserve asset, if you will, that underlies it. Now we will have a 0 through 15-year rigorous market-based yield curve telling you what is staking worth at the 5-year point or the 10-year point or the 15-year point, because actors on both sides of the market are bidding on the HTT tokens and establishing the discount rate that is the fair market rate of that particular redemption day. And so the string of those, as RJ is showing here, becomes a native token risk-free rate of return yield curve. And that's an innovation in the development and maturing of any marketplace. So it would not surprise us at all that as this develops, first it's going to promote staking, right? It's going to promote staking, and that's a good thing. It's going to promote longer staking, because you can earn a lot more because longer pays better, and you've got some elegant ways to get to liquidity if you need it. So more people are going to be less hesitant. As they do, this curve will develop, and then other projects, ecosystems, will find ways to build on other interesting financial services. So we think this is a bit of a necessary step in the development and maturing of a full set of financial services. So I'll pause there at the high level, and then if you want to pick up on any particular amounts of stakes and things that are out there, RJ.
Can you guys go into more detail about how the price is connected to the discount?
Yeah, I could touch on that. So at a high level, we think, so there's a few different ways to think about it. At a high level, one way to think about it is asking yourself, so when I stake Hex, say for a year, how much Hex do I expect to receive at end stake? And, we can actually get a pretty good approximation of what that'll be based on, the share rates, and based on the number of users staking. We can maybe get a decent approximation of what the yield is on a Hex stake. Whatever that yield is, we believe that that's going to be a pretty big driver of the discount of the Hex time token. And the reason being is that Hex time tokens are ultimately backed by stakes. And so looking at this chart here, in the example, in this case, Hex Day 3000, there's an HTT token that is redeemable on day 3000, and it's called. These are all testnet values, so they're not necessarily realistic, but in this case, HTT 3000 is yielding a 92% return based on the implied discount to hex, and so ultimately users aren't going to, if an HTT is yielding a higher return than an equivalent hex stake, well, then users are going to buy the hex time token instead. And then conversely, if hex time tokens have way worse return than an equivalent hex stake, then we expect stakers to mint hex time tokens and sell those tokens because they're overpriced, and that'll help drive the hex time token back down. So we kind of see the two sides of this market. There's buyers and sellers of hex time tokens, and we think there's strong presence on both sides. The buyers of hex time tokens, because they'll see an attractive yield, especially maybe relative to hex stakes. And then hex stakers who want to gain liquidity on their stake, they might see a hex time token that they can sell into. We think there's not just one side of the market that is going to move the price in one direction. We think the price is going to kind of be tightly narrowing in on something approximating the hex staker rate. With that being said, there's lots of other variables to account for. One would be hex time tokens are liquid. There should be users, because of that benefit, you're probably not going to get as high of a yield, and compared to hex staking. And so there might be a liquidity premium, as we call it in TradFi, on that token. There's lots of considerations, I guess, but and it'll be really interesting to see how the market, prices these things as time goes on. Bill, did you have any other comments
this is
there?
such an important point that let's dwell on this for a minute and attack it from a couple of angles, because it's a very important aha moment for everybody to get. It's a part of this innovation. So let me take you through a concrete example. Pretend you're the actor. If you could buy a 1-year HTT and it's guaranteed by the protocol 1-for-1 with a hex return in 1 year, what fraction of a hex would you pay for that today? Would you pay a half a hex today for a guaranteed 1 hex handed back to you in a year? Think to yourself. I would, because I'm doubling my hex bag in a year. You see the point? So my argument would be that's too cheap. Nobody's going to let the market sit there. What are they going to do? They're going to buy it until the price goes higher than doubling in a year in native hex terms. They'd be silly not to. Now, how high should the price go? Would you pay 0.999 hexes today for a returned hex in a year? Probably not. That doesn't seem worth it. But would you be willing to sell at that price to someone who did by minting that number and selling it to them? I would, because I have the hex now and it's valuable for that tiny give up of a year. So there's a natural action on both sides of the market. And why is that? Why didn't that work with other projects? And won't bring names into it and things, but we've attempted to do projects like this where you could use your HSIs and sell them and get a token back. And we knew there was an ARB on the ceiling, and but there was this floor and it didn't hold and it dropped out and the market stopped and things like that. Why? Answer, because it was backed by a non-valuable token. This, contrast, is backed by hex. It's not backed by our own invented actuator token, for example. It's backed by hex, something external to the project that actually contains value. That's going to put a floor because that token has value on its redemption day, and the market won't let that get too discounted. So I'll pause and see if that explanation begins to bring to mind.
You're creating an arbitrage on time. That's how I see it.
That's a sort of a fair way to put that.
I can give an example here, actually. About half a year ago, there were some deals going around to buy TON at a discount. I think at a 50% discount or so of the market value at the time was $2.50 or something. And they were giving it at 50% discount for people who would have to wait a year and then get unlocks for about half a year or something. That was a bit, and that's a very big project that, Ton has obviously value in the market. So I think that's maybe a real life example that can go around. So about 50% for something that was a year, and then you need to wait a little bit longer to get your unlocks.
Let me give you another one that you might be familiar with for those of you, involved in any of the financial markets, the traditional ones. A zero coupon bond. For those, if you don't know what this is, just let it go for a minute. But for those who might, what a zero coupon bond is a bond issued by the U.S. Treasury. It's got a face value of $1,000 called par, and you get that at maturity. So the holder of this bond can present it to the Treasury at its maturity date, kind of comparable to our redemption date. Maybe it's 5 years. Let's say it's 5 years. And they're going to get $1,000. The return comes from the discount that they buy it at on the day they purchase it. If it's 5 years earlier, they buy it, say, at 50 cents on the dollar, and then they hold it, and it matures at par. They've doubled their money in 5 years, and there's an imputed yield to that, and that's their return. There's no coupons or anything. It's simply that they're buying the discount. That's exactly what we're doing here. But it's predicated upon having an actual underlying value token external to the project, namely, in this case, Hex.
Maybe just add one more point to that. With that, the bond example you just gave, I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know if somebody wants to go on mute for a minute, but in the bond example you just gave, Bill, you could apply that same question to U.S. Treasury bonds, namely, what should the discount rate be on Treasury bonds? Well, funny enough, Jerome Powell pretty much tells you what the rate should be, at least in the short term, on those Treasury bonds. And so the discount rate in the case of Treasury bonds is in part defined just by, whatever the Fed tells you. In the Hex world, the equivalent analogy would essentially be the Hex protocol, because the Hex protocol is telling us how much Hex will you get back for this much Hex deposited for a given time. That's what Hex staking is. And so similarly, Hex time tokens, we think, will kind of be driven by those same factors.
I got a question. So, game theory on this, right? You got 1 million Hex, you stake it for a year, you instantly redeem the HTTs, you make a 2-year stake, instantly redeem, and just ladder it out, and then you're just making the yield on the 15-year stake, go 15 years out, and you're, if the redemption is 98% of a Hex or whatever, if it's not too far off, you can just ladder all the way out and then chill, Is that, what's the game theory in your mind?
Well, RJ, if you want to speak to amplification, to some degree, that's what he's referring to, and we have that.
Yeah, and just a quick, I think, correction in the terms there. You use the term redemption. I think, when you mint HTTs, it would just be a standard sell for one token, buy for another on a DEX. The redemption happens, at when the underlying stake ends and you redeem it for Hex.
Got it.
But as far as the trading, so you bring up a really important point, and there's a concept we're calling amplified staking, where in your example you stake 1,000 Hex, whatever, for 15 years, and you can immediately mint your Hex time tokens. You could sell the Hex time tokens for Hex and then create another stake. And this strategy would be especially profitable if the Hex time tokens are overpriced, because if you get to make Hex time tokens against your stake and sell those Hex time tokens, well, if the Hex time tokens are overpriced, great. We get a bunch more Hex back, and we can create even more stakes. And so you basically get to amplify your T-share exposure multiple times over. And it can be a really effective strategy depending on if the market is offsides on the HTT price. It's a great thing to take advantage of. And obviously it increases, the number of stakes in existence, and it helps, keep that Hex time token price in check, that kind of investment strategy.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We were coming up almost at the hour. Bill, I accidentally turned off your camera, so please feel free to turn it on again. But I do want to bring in now the shit, because one of the questions that I asked that sadly we didn't get to, or maybe we can still get to it, but what do you need to make this success, right? And I'm sure engagement will be quite a bit in getting people to do the tasks of sharing and following and being around when the launch is there. So I do want to bring up Ilya now here quickly, if he can, to share the Shit app, where people will actually be very easily able to follow the project, do all the tasks that are necessary. Would like him to show this quickly, how this works, and then maybe we can answer the last question of, how do you make this work? How can we get the entire community behind to bring you the volume that you need? So Ilya, do you mind coming up here, maybe sharing your screen?
Hey guys, pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, RJ. First of
Hey,
all,
can you mute your mic?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So, first of all, thanks everyone for joining AMA. I think it's very interesting, and I'm here to support everyone. So we launched the Shit project. It's when so many serious stuff, but in the same moment, so many scams and different memes and different rug pulls in blockchain. And I myself built different companies and different projects, being a producer in crypto space. Currently, one of the lead teams in the Shit project, and we are launched very interesting meme-styled platform. We actually today just started our first day where we're starting the Pulse Chain campaign. So we fully coming into the Pulse Chain space. We are reviewing the different projects. We are analyzing them. We're checking them. Thank you so much for Curator and Mark for giving us really good advisory on the projects that are exist on the platform and on the Pulse Chain. To be honest, I'm very impressed what you guys built in the Actuator project. It's pretty cool, and I think makes sense. I feel like, main question, and the things that I was thinking is you are fully exist and are related just for Hex, or you planning to scale to different chains as well, and kind of using the same thing if it's needed for different chains, or it's specifically the Hex ecosystem. But yeah, you can answer later. We can even talk to chat about, really like it. So briefly about what we launch, I'm going to share my screen. So currently we built a platform where we are uniting projects. And
sorry, I didn't see your screen for a long time. I can see it now.
Let me know if you can see my screen now.
Does everyone else able to see?
Yes, we can see.
Awesome. I'm sharing my screen.
And before, I just want to let everyone know that this is basically a tutorial. Hopefully, we'll get all the community members later in to follow the app. And Ilya especially show, the Actuator profile, the tasks that people can do on there, because we are going to add tasks coming in the coming days and weeks. Whenever we need people to do stuff, it'll be much easier to do it through there. So just a quick... I think it would be great
guys,
to follow.
I'm sharing the links right now to our first chat so you can see them. But pretty much it's a very simple application that fully works in Telegram. We pretty much built it web-based. It's currently utilizing some partially blockchain parts, but we didn't have no blockchain layers yet. It's fully working with Telegram. So we give ability user to claim the Shit points that pretty much going to be converted into the token at some point. And then we are creating an ability for users select the project that we are selected for them. So for example, we started with the Pulse Chain. This is the first day. We just added the Pulse Chain. Each users have ability to vote. So voting, he's spending his point that he already making during using the system. So it's kind of you make and then you spend. Each project what added to the system has pretty much a voting ability, but also ability to complete different tasks. So today during this AMA, before we started, we added Actuator as well. So we already see that 12 users voted for the project. We got around 14 votes. The cool part that we creating different engagements. So user can tap, and when they tap, they participate in a game. So the tapping currently works that you have to tap 1,000 times. So it's like a game, and then you are voting for the project. So we give like physical ability for people to vote instead of waiting or spending shit points to vote for the projects. More activities users create. We have ratings and leaderboards where we can see how many users voted for each project. And in the same time, users who participate in that voting and filtered by leaderboard are going to receive the airdrop. First of all, it's going to be the shit points, but then since we collaborate with different projects and we create a boost for them, the project will select the airdrop amount that's going to be distributed between the most active users who's in the community. So we pretty much currently onboarding influencers, onboarding different communities, global communities, and then users who are onboarding in the product, they go and they complete the tasks. So in this case, Actuator has its own tasks we can measure, we just added. So you will see that when these tasks completed, you will see more users coming and joining the Actuator community just from playing these games. But then our goal right now, since we started on the Pulse chain, is to onboard people from the Pulse chain, create some fun voting for them, help to select projects they like. Each project that's going to be added to the system can have like a referral link. So whoever support the project can invite people to specifically vote for that project. So in that case, we create in the marketing channel, right, a boost of traffic that comes from that application to different projects and different tasks that they provided for us and boosting the community. When the token is launched is the future where we looking into, and that's when the token is launched, we can actually create pretty much like access for users to participate in the pre-sale or access for users to buy some tokens, kind of like connected with the launchpads or prepare projects to be launched with the community support. Also users who participating as the first buyers. Also another cool part that whoever participating in different games that's going to be created here around the projects, they will receive not just the shit points, but they're going to receive the USDT or USDC or different tokens that the project provides. That's what we're working on launching hopefully in September. It's already going to be some monetization for users.
Thank you so much, Ilya, for that presentation. So yeah, I think everybody knows how extremely competitive and difficult marketing is in crypto. What probably many people don't know is that this tapping that he demonstrated here is a massive, almost a craze in crypto right now, especially on Ton, but in all the different ecosystems that is generating the biggest engagement for projects. So I'm very excited to launch that together. That will allow us to really combine the marketing efforts from all the projects that go through the Forge and also projects on the side, and make sure that whenever you guys have a task, when you need users to do something, it'll be very, very easy to do that because you can integrate it into this app, give people notifications and make things happen. So I'm very happy that we can start that together.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, please guys join the bot that I send the links to. Check it out. I'm really looking forward to hear your feedback because we just launched it and we just started on the Pulse chain. You will see two projects, pretty much Pulse chain and Actuator. So looking forward to connect and continue. Thank you.
Yes. So we're actually making this a requirement for people to win the prizes is to be registered on the app and complete the tasks there for Actuator. Please do that. We'll make announcements later about that and share it around.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sure. Please.
Okay.
Only very short one, though. We only have a couple of minutes left. So.
Yeah. My question is actually really simple. With the Actuator project, your project sounds too good to be true. What are the biggest obstacles or challenges you have faced while trying to establish your project, and how have you been dealing with these issues? That's my question.
I heard Actuator sounds too good to be true. And what challenges do we expect to face? I mean, the contract is all, it's ultimately built upon the Hex protocol, and all the innovation is, we're just kind of building upon the Hex innovation. I don't think there's anything massively down there. Well, our project, our big focus is getting the liquidity, sufficient liquidity. And so that's going to be a big effort here in the launch phase. I don't know, Bill, if you had anything else to add.
There's one more thing that I think we need in the beginning, and that is we want to get the word out, because there's farming of the Actuator token, which we never really got to, but that's an important piece. And we want to have as many people in a position to farm as possible so that there's a breadth of distribution. We wouldn't want it to look like a very small group farmed it for 6 months because nobody knew about it. We just think that's an important thing as a fairness thing to the community, is to get the word out so that they can provide liquidity, which is good for the community, and thus farm the Actuator token, which has its own benefits.
And Mark, I know we're about to wrap up. Last comment is that
I wanted to quickly say, I mean, those are important points, and there's no, we can run over 10, 15 minutes. That's all right. But I think this last bit, let's drill on that a little bit more, because we want to get engagement and breadth. So don't worry, we can have another 15 minutes.
Can I explain the shit a little bit, or the value proposition for the shit real quick? Why you would want to do this?
Okay, then we make it 20 minutes more.
Just give me a minute here. So if you're one of these communities, you would want to see actual real engagement. It's valuable. This is why you want to climb these leaderboards. All these people playing these games are doing so that they could get attention. And then it's actual verified attention, that you're pressing the engagement button on these games so that you see that there's an actual human behind it. Usually you can manipulate it or whatever. But if you participate in these type of systems, it's really valuable for the people that are trying to get word of their project, like these guys who are getting a new project out and they want people to know about it. So if you participate in these games, that's why they're so valuable. And when you have to mine the tokens basically by pressing the button over and over to get a vote to be able to participate. When the token launches, then people can buy those tokens off the market and use those to vote for the projects instead of having to tap the buttons over and over. So this is like what that whole value system is, why the shit is so important and so innovative, why it gets such big engagement, is because it's highly targeted people that are getting this crypto related projects, and then you're gauging who is actually here, who supports it, and it's rigid. People have to commit time to go ahead and press those buttons to get the points. So this is why we're promoting these things together. If you look at that shit chat, it's been going crazy with the people joining, thousands and thousands of members, way different than the growth of these most projects, especially on Pulse Chain right now. So this is something that would be really big for our community, and we could all participate in. And this community should really engage with this. If you want to support the Actuator and help them out, that's a good way to do it. But also promote it throughout the rest of crypto and let people know this exists. It's a great scheme. That's why you want to do this.
Thank you so much. Is it a proof of no work? It was you, right?
Yes, proof of no work, exactly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a really good way to put it together. Yeah, and we pretty much right now investing a lot into marketing and development ourselves as the development team and marketing team to pretty much boost the community. We're looking for the users around the global Telegram and Twitter community, filtering accounts and starting to engage with influencers. So we just started, but we're looking forward to have hundreds of thousands users in a matter of months, and then you will see real traction of the followers coming to your channels, and then you will understand what I'm talking about. And this all social activity is backed by real activity of the users, and then pretty much token also pretty much backed by the real activity of the users at some point. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Looking forward to see you guys again.
Oh, Nate is here. He's popped in. Maybe we get a quick word from him, because I'm a huge fan of Nate, that he can listen to very complex things and then sum it up very concisely for everyone to understand. I don't know how long you've been here and how much you already got, but I would love to hear a couple of minutes of your take on all of this.
Yeah, apologies. I just got my show ran a little bit longer. We were running with Coach X and the Grays for PTGC and UFO. We were kind of diving deep into that. So, it took a little bit longer. But, I've been here for, I want to say about 15, 20 minutes. Currently, every single thing that I've been hearing and looking at it seems like it's whole thing is basically just kind of like a copy of what Hedron and Icosa has been doing, except not as complicated. And overall, it seems like it's more like a competitor to them. And so I know Hedron and Icosa isn't doing too well, but are you guys just kind of like trying to revamp the contract that is on Hex just to be able to like either move Hex stakes around and or being able to mint early certain tokens to be able to like just go play around with them and buy things and do things with them?
No, let me clarify something on that. I wouldn't say it's a competitor to Hedron. Here's a key difference. A key difference is while we share the ability to produce an HSI, right, to wrap a token, that component is shared, but that's a commodity. That's not a critical issue. The distinction here is that the floor is upheld because it's backed by Hex, which is an externality to the system and has actual value. Hex has value independent of Actuator, right? That's the whole point. That's the reserve asset. The other projects that you're talking about here, those didn't hold the floor because they weren't backed by that external token. They were backed by a project token. And so the innovation is there's actually a reserve asset backing this one-to-one value and will bring a bid, right? As I used, maybe you didn't catch the example I gave, but if I could sell you a 1-year Hex time token that was protocol guaranteed to hand you 1-for-1 Hex back in 1 year, would you pay a half a Hex for it today? Chances are the answer is you would, because it's backed by that external Hex and you're going to double your Hex bag in a year. That's the value proposition that's very different than the other one. You had to deal with other tokens that you didn't know if they'd have any value or not.
Yeah, so that was actually one of my questions is what is the ratio? Is there always going to be a ratio, or is this going to be one of those things where like you're always guaranteed that when you make the stake of Hex, you can mint those same amount of Hex for however many time or whatever, right? You can either pre-mint those or you're able to mint those. However, right, when thinking about the price of it, though, you're trying to back the Hex time token. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. Okay, Hex time token with Hex itself, so that way the price will always be the same, you know?
It's always the same on redemption day. The question is, what does the market demand or provide as a discount rate? And that's always going to be market-based, which is the whole point. That's what gives us the yield. Market's going to establish what the 1-year point is, the 5-year point, the 10-year point, the 15-year point. And now you actually have curve trade possibilities.
Is this pretty much like a futures contract in some way? It feels, I'm not from finance, you know, so it feels a little bit like that.
The exception there, it's like a futures contract, except there's no counterparty risk, or with a futures contract, there's no guarantee that your counterparty is going to bring the asset to you. In this case, we're talking about an immutable protocol backed by Hex stakes, which is there as long as contract is, you know, as long as the contract is as long as there's no contract risk, then it's not like a futures in that it's a guaranteed exchange. Hex time token for Hex.
All right.
I just thought of a really cool strategy. So personally, like I get the idea of staking and Hex and all that. Unfortunately, that's an old narrative. That's something that people really don't like to do anymore. A lot of people got burnt with staking Hex, unfortunately. Kareem, all right? And so I don't think it's going to be all that popular just because you have to lock up your tokens. However,
well, wait,
I do.
What's that? Kareem this would have solved Kareem's problem.
Yeah, because you're able to mint, right?
And he would have still had his end stake. He would have still had his stake.
It gives him the ability to be liquid. That's what it is.
Agreed. So I was thinking of something that would be kind of interesting. Would be more so like a Pulse X type of thing, where you're getting like buy and burn, where it's going to be able, like next bear, right? Things don't drop as much. Simply because you've got an infinite buyer, they're always buying up the price. And so it's not going to drop, right? But it's not going to drop as bad as, like, say, Hex if everybody decides to just dump again. Now, there's not a lot of protocols that are being created currently that are trying to buy and burn and or liquidity bond Hex as it is. And so that's not going to mute the drop during a bear. But if something like that could happen, right, I think it would be absolutely fantastic to be able to. This would be like you stake out your hex for a long time, right? You would encourage that, and then you would wait to mint the hex time token until those bear markets, and then you can start from there. You would have a lot more hex, and then you can start buying in the really super cheap hex, and then you can really stake those out really well. I think that would be an absolutely fantastic strategy, and I literally just appeared immediately.
That's one of many things that you'll find are at your disposal now if you had a full yield curve of this kind of capability. What you do with those HTTs might depend on the market condition. Is the 5-year cheap? Well, maybe you just want to buy them and lock in a guaranteed 5-year return. Notice there's going to be arbing of sorts between, say, the hex staking yield curve. What can you get right now today for a 5-year traditional hex stake? Well, the fact is you don't really know because that's dependent on the action of others. But this isn't. If you buy a 5-year token at a fixed discount, you've guaranteed that rate in native terms, right? Because going from your purchase price to par, and that is your return. Whereas it's uncertain what you're actually going to get on the traditional hex curve. So there's a lot of different interesting strategies that emerge, is my point.
What about like emergency in staking, how that gets put into the calculation of how much you're going to get out?
Yes. RJ?
Yeah, so there's some details there which we can go over, but generally speaking, emergency end stake is prohibited if you've minted tokens against your stake, because if you've minted tokens, that means that somebody else might now have claim on the underlying hex in your stake. And if you emergency end stake, you might be blowing away somebody else's, underlying value behind their hex time tokens. So there are certain restrictions that the contract places on the hex stake in order to guarantee that one hex time token is always backed by one hex and redeemable when the stake finally is unlocked. For emergency end stake, the contract does account for that, and then there's other circumstances we could talk about which are more in the weeds, but it has to do with hex time tokens being backed by the emergency end stake value of your stake, which is kind of an advanced strategy, which is for another stream. But yeah, there's a lot more to say there. But
right.
I think just
all that.
One general point is that.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But the approach to this protocol is not to necessarily do anything novel, but to look deeply at the existing hex contract and ask ourselves, what's like a natural, organic, product that we can wrap around it. So for starters, a hex stake has, if you peel under the hex protocol and look at a given hex stake, the hex protocol will tell you what was the principal and what's the rewards accrued to date. That's knowable, and that amount is guaranteed at end stake. We could take those properties, and then from there we could be like, okay, well, let's just mint tokens that represent ownership over that hex. That's locked, but unlockable at end stake. So we're thinking of this as just kind of a natural product that's manifested based on how the hex protocol works already. And go ahead, you were going to say something.
So I know you guys got a little bit short on time. I started hearing because I came up with a list of questions that just by hearing in the small amount of time I was here, and I've stated a couple of them here. But I'll just say this one last thing, right, and I'll let you guys go. One of the things that I worry about is this being akin to an incentive token, where it's basically forever down. And the idea, of course, is like, hey, you stake out your hex, and then you can get rewarded with some of the HTT, right? And then you can pull that out, and then you're able to spend that on whatever you like. And with that idea, sometimes I think people misunderstand of like that means that as soon as you mint that out, you want to go immediately buy something else with it. And so therefore, if you're looking at the way that these tokens are basically going to look like on a chart, it's just down, especially when there's a lot of.
I think you're getting a little misunderstood, Nate. This is the point of it. You want tokens are issued at a discount. You're playing on the discount rate. So as you get closer to the end date, then you should be paying whatever the market strike price is. it's basically guaranteed almost for the most part to be down. You're not going to usually want to pay for this unless in crazy market situations, maybe the price spikes and people want to exit. But the token price is meant to be at a discount rate. Sometimes the rate will vary, but it's meant to be down, and then it accrues based on the time to the expiration.
We made the example to a zero coupon bond, if that's familiar to you. Would a zero coupon bond go to zero? Not likely, because if you consider a U.S. Treasury as guaranteed risk-free return, which let's not go down that road, but as far as a credit risk goes, the fact is it's going to be worth par at maturity. That's the guarantee of the credit. So if I'm buying it 2 years before it matures, or in our case, redemption day, I know I'm getting 1-for-1 hex in 2 years. There's going to be a bid price there. Somebody's going to, because it's a reserve asset external to our tokens. Even that's different than incentive token. Incentive token, it was about the incentive token. It wasn't about an external reserve asset that you're going to get at maturity. If it were, then it wouldn't fall as far because you know you're going to exchange it for a known value entity. That's what we got here. And so there's an automatic floor because, like I said, if I offered you the chance to buy a 1-year HTT at 0.5 hex, would you do it? Because you have a guaranteed doubling of your bag in 1 year in hex terms. I think you'd buy it. I'm just guessing because why would I not buy something that's going to hand me 1 hex in 1 year at a half a hex today? X contract risk, right? There's a floor for that because hex has value.
So then you're pricing the time and then the difference in between the two.
That's it. You're just pricing the time that you're willing to wait to get that 1 hex. I want a 30% return to wait a year for my hex. But you're not going to.
Your hex stakes liquid. So then you have the option to exit and not at an emergency end stake penalty where you could actually get out for more. In many circumstances, instead of having to eat that huge penalty, you could go through using your tokens to exit, and someone's probably going to pay you a better rate in a lot of cases than it would be to emergency end stake. And that's what, like in the case of Kareem, he might have had that option, and it might have worked out for him in this case.
We would have been a totally good answer for him, realistic.
Truth. I'm a little bit worried about the idea of how this affects Hex then, because if you're trying to back directly against Hex, if they pull it out and then immediately sell, that's only going to drop the price of HTT. But then, like, obviously you need more Hex on the other side of the equation. And so that's just going to end up dropping the price of Hex at that point.
In theory, it should actually increase the amount of mints because it's giving the more functionality, it's giving you more liquidity, giving more time to exit. So in theory, actually, it should increase the amount of people staking, which could be bringing the yield down on Hex. But it should increase the amount of Hex stakers because they're now liquid when they weren't before. And you're pricing the discount rate. That's what the token is. The token represents the discount rate.
Mm-hmm. So not bad. Yeah, looks interesting. So yeah, I'll have to get you guys on for an actual show of some kind. I know I'm going to be doing my own Ascending Man show, kind of putting the pieces together. I mean, this is all crap right here, so I'm actually starting to set stuff up. But that would be a very interesting show because what I kind of want to do is focus on more like projects and things going on chain and how we're going to be helping people out. So yeah, sounds like an interesting idea.
Great.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Just a update on where the status of the project. We completed 1 audit. We're in the middle of a 2nd audit, and the DApp is live on testnet, so you guys can play around with that. And we're going to open source the protocol this week, and we're shooting for October mainnet launch is the plan for us. So
awesome. Since we have Max right here, Pulse Ray Vision, do you also want to say hi quickly since you got your camera on?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and answer Nate's question really quickly and succinctly. I didn't want to give out too much because I want to do an AMA with these guys next week and have them on my channel and go over this stuff. But basically what I've surmised out of all of this is that their protocol is going to allow all the new stakes and HSI stakes to basically take advantage of everything that the Maximus DAO contract has. So the Maximus DAO contract basically liquidizes and fractionalizes super stake. And this allows you to fractionalize and liquidize, like make liquid all the new stakes or HSI stakes that you want to do with Hex. So that's just like a real quick 1,000-foot overview that this gives us all the advantages of Maximus DAO. The difference is Maximus DAO only had one minting, where these guys are creating a chance for you to mint your own Maximus DAO contract every day or every chance you want to with Liquid Hex or with the HSI. So I don't know if Nate's even still, yeah, it says Nate's still here listening. But basically, that's the way that I would break it
Max,
down.
thank you very much. I didn't say hello to you, by the way. Hey, bro, what's up?
So I
that
just
was
want to
actually one of
jump
my
in
questions.
and
You
give
answered
these
it
guys
perfectly.
that quick little soundbite that they can use, and I look forward to doing an AMA with these guys next week. That's all.
Thanks.
All right. So I think this was very informative, at least was for me. I hope you guys all enjoyed it as well. I do want to remind everyone, watch this and then go to the Forge and write your opinion and your feedback and your suggestions. I know there's a lot of community members that don't feel comfortable coming live on an AMA, but they have a lot of interesting and smart ideas. We have had some reviews on there already. We're going to push it a lot over the next couple of weeks. So please do that to get your chance of your share of these Actuator tokens that will be coming. So unless you guys have anything final to say, I think it was a good AMA.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mark. This is really
Thanks
good.
for having us on.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And we'll be in contact.